Join our knowledgeable hosts as they dive into the captivating universe of comic books, movies, TV shows, and pop culture. Get ready for vibrant discussions and a shared enthusiasm for all things superhero and beyond. A comic podcast straight from the panels. This is Beyond the Capes.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Cape podcast. With us today is Tommy, WorldatWar Comics. I know you have seen him on Instagram. He's done incredible interviews along with his own comic. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Ryan. Thanks for having me, man. Really excited to be here with you. Love the hat, by the way. I'm a huge Green Lantern fan, dude. I got to get me one of those.
Oh, the best thing was when I think it was like 2 months ago, New Era somehow silently put out every DC character fitted hat, and I said, well, I'm about 200 now in the hole, so might as well just keep going.
Which one did you get?
I have Green Lantern, Flash, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman.
Oh, you didn't mess around. You went for Justice League, man. You you assembled everybody, man. That's awesome.
Hey, everyone's got to be present. As we ask every creator, of all the things you could have done, of all the things you could have poured your money into, but you decided to come down the hole like the rest of us, why comic books?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ryan. I've loved comic books since I was a little kid. It started with like the cartoons, right? I'm 50, or I'll be 50 here pretty soon, so I might be a little older than you. But G.I. Joe, when I grew up, was as big as anything ever. G.I. Joe, Transformers, and then WWF. Those three things, were huge, right? Turtles were a little bit later for me, but I love G.I. Joe. And then someone said, they make comic books of G.I. Joe. I'm like, what? And I actually had a comic book within bike riding distance from my house. So me and my friends went up there. We met the owner, who was really cool. And man, every Wednesday, or actually probably more than Wednesday, we were up there several times. And we would be up there. And my first comic book was G.I. Joe, and it was Nam. I don't know if you know that comic book called Nam. It was
I've seen it come up once.
Yeah, it was from Marvel at the time, and my dad was in the Marines. My grandfather was in the Army, and so I grew up in a military family, and I love G.I. Joe, and so I had to pick that up too. So those are actually my two first comic books, was G.I. Joe and Nam, which I love, man. And then, it turned into Transformers, and then I'm like, wow, I watched Spider-Man on cartoons too. I didn't know they made comics of that. So then at the time, obviously ASM was around, so I bought that, but then Web of Spider-Man came out. You had Spectacular, Peter Parker. I think at the time, there was like 7 different titles of Spider-Man at the same time. It was incredible, man. It was a great time to be a Spider-Man fan. But yeah, that's how it all started, man. I loved it, and I've loved it ever since. I got married, had a bunch of kids, and so you have these gaps throughout your life where you're not reading anymore, and then they grow up, and then you go back and buy everything that you sold, and you know how it goes.
Oh, I do. What was I telling? I think I stopped around like high school when things kind of got boring. I think kind of like Civil War, and things were like, it was okay. And then what brought me back always, and I think a lot of people have talked to, was 2011, 2010, Blackest Night. That was like, all right, well, we're kind of restarting some things, so let me just see what this is about. But G.I. Joe, that's a big one too, because I think somewhere in my collection I still have a number 1 original of the G.I. Joe,
Nice.
Which is fantastic because it's not an issue where they only introduce like Duke and like 3 people. Pretty much the whole cast might as well has appeared in that comic book.
Incredible. Yeah, no, it's very unique that I think like 10 or 12 characters were highlighted within that first issue, man. You jumped right in, man. You had to get to know everybody right away. But I knew most of them already because of the toys. The cartoon and the toys. Then obviously the movie came out, and then Transformers movie was one of the first movies I ever cried at with Optimus Prime, and it was a mess for me, man. I was like, no, But yeah, those are good times to grow up, man. The 80s were good to me, man.
Oh, for sure. The Transformers movie, for sure. Yeah. It's been a great soundtrack. I know for a while my phone ringtone was The Touch.
That's awesome.
And I find it funny because you could tell it was a different time. Because when they divide the chapters and you actually read a chapter that you can go to in the movie, one of the chapters I think is just called like the swear word. And it jumps right to like when his dad's like in the ship and it's blowing up, and I think he says like damn or like shit.
Yeah.
And like that's a chapter. And that's like a big chapter. I'm like, all right, well that we wouldn't even glance at that nowadays. Funny
That's awesome.
especially with the new Transformers, that was phenomenal. I can't even put that into words what they did.
You talking like the Skybound when they took over from IDW? Or you talking-
Skybound, even the new movie that
Oh, yeah.
just came out.
Did you like the new movie that just came out? Transformers One.
Yes, going back and telling the story of Orion Pax before he became Optimus Prime is not a lot of information that a lot of people are familiar with. I think they just thought Optimus Prime was press fit and molded and came right out the factory. That was not the case.
Yeah.
The voice that they got from Megatron, it's such a good story. If anyone's listening and you're a Transformers fan, it is a kid's movie, but it goes so deep, so good.
That's all. I'll have to check it out. There's been all kinds of mixed reviews, but I'm definitely going to look it for myself. I love Transformers, so I'm sure I'm going to like it. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting about your scenario, not only do you have very entertaining videos, you've interviewed a lot of people within the comic book industry, so you have a lot of perspective, but you were also involved in your own comic book. Did one come first?
I think they started about the same time. I mean, the comic book probably came a little bit earlier. I've always wanted to do my own comic book. I mean, if you grow up reading comic books, you probably opened up a Spider-Man, laid on your stomach on the ground with a pad of paper and tried to trace or draw, and then you start making up your own characters and you realize it's just a different version of Captain America or Spider-Man, right? So I think that desire has always wanted to be there. Then you get married, you get into a career, and then you just forget about it. And then the pandemic hit like a lot of people, and I'm working from home, and all my kids are all 18 and above now, so they're all adults. And my wife, we're sitting in the house together every single day, and I don't care how long you've been married, I don't care how much you love someone, you got to have hobbies to be able to have alone time and to kind of unwind. And she's like, dude, why don't you just start the comic book thing that you've always wanted to do? And I've had this storyline in my head for a while. And then the pandemic, also all the conspiracy theories that was going on, like that was super interesting to me too. So I added a little bit of that flavor to my comic book, but it was fun, man. I enjoyed it. And so that's when I started getting into it, but I didn't know how. Yeah. And so I started going on YouTube and watching videos and Googling and all that good stuff. And I thought, well, maybe if I interview a few people, because I wanted to start a channel, because everyone's starting YouTube channels in the pandemic. I was like, well, maybe I just start reaching out to people and see if they'll come on and I can interview them. And while I'm interviewing them, I'll get a lot of really good advice. So selfishly, I started the YouTube channel for myself because I wanted to learn how to be a better creator. And I'm still learning, man. There's a lot to learn. But the second thing is I do really love comic books. And, comic books, if you live long enough, you'll realize like every 15 to 20, I think Mark Miller says every 20 years, there's a reset that happens in comic books. So, and I've seen that, right? We had the explosion of Image Comics in the early 90s. And by the end of the 90s, you could pick up any Image comic book for like $1 at the time because they were producing 6 million copies of some of these issues. And it ruined the market because so many people thought they were going to get rich off of it. So anyways, I'm digressing a little bit, but the ups and downs and everything, I really love comic books, and I would hate for this medium to go away. So I wanted to start the YouTube channel selfishly to learn, but I also wanted to start it so I could bring on creators to give them a platform, learn from them, but also allow other people to understand the process. And I wanted to do it more from a positive perspective. There's a lot of really good channels. I listen to some of those channels where, they're a little bit more, they're looking at comic books and they're telling you their honest opinion about it. And I like that, right? Because that dictates sometimes what I'm willing to buy. But I also wanted to make sure that mine was pretty positive. That's not my style. So my show, I don't care who you are. I don't care what you're creating. If you want to come on and share it, I try to create a platform where it's all about the person that's on. And it's just about people who are listening to get to know that person, why they created, where the creation came from, what was their process, that type of stuff. And as I started to do that, I started to learn a lot. I'm like, dude, this is actually pretty fun. And then you start reaching out to some of the people that you like at DC and Marvel and Image. And all it takes is like one or two to say, yeah, I'll do it. And then they come on, and now you could use that as you're reaching out to others. Go, hey, I had Tim Seeley on, and I would love to have you on. And then it just starts to build, and then you start to gain trust, and people realize, hey, this guy's not going to come on and crap all over whatever I'm doing. So I try to keep things positive because I really want to keep the momentum that I've had on the channel. And I'll let fans or people who are listening dictate whether they like it or not. You know what I mean? So I do some reviews of comics, but most of them are pretty positive. I try to review the stuff that I really enjoy. So hopefully I answered your question, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the whole reason why we made Beyond the Cape.
Exactly. Yeah.
We went to conventions, and it's crazy how much gatekeeping is still done at conventions, which it is frustrating to watch someone be like, well, I read Facebook memes, so I know all about Deadpool. All right. You're welcome to believe that, but let me help you out here. Let me just show you some things. But there's a lot of hate though. That's still,
yeah.
And I think you got to give credit to Marvel and DC for bringing in the casual fan.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, and I'm a 90s child, wearing an X-Men shirt was lame. You got bullied. I got bullied. I got bullied a lot.
Yeah.
Walking into a Walmart and seeing like a cartoon character or something on a shirt was just not going to happen. Everything was and one basketball and something else. So now walking in the any store, it's just like, well, here's the Marvel section, here's this section, animes in the corner. This is a world I wish I had grown up in. So I think it is best to foster that kind of network, because it's crazy how many of us grew up where we weren't accepted, and now it is accepted. But now we want to rein it in. We don't want anyone in it anymore. It's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Now, what's funny is with your story is there's two documentaries that I always said people should make, especially for the indie comic scene. Number one should just be called Pandemic, the Comic Industry, because so much of some of the best indie comics got made during the pandemic. That really needs to be observed in comic book history, because that launched so many careers or started so much, because everyone just had so much time to really think it out. And it's really that you mentioned the Image Comics thing, because I think we could do another documentary on what not to do with comic books as we see now in the comic book industry, and what is starting to happen, which will get corrected at some point. But yeah, no, everything is it's just crazy. How everything kind of comics just goes in a circle. It goes in a giant circle always.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. Hopefully we're not heading toward that same kind of a situation, but it's just when you see a publisher, I tease Dynamite sometimes, and I like Dynamite, don't get me wrong. They have some really great titles. Yeah. But when you see a Disney title and they have 25 variants for one issue, you're like, come on, man. I'm not sure long-term this is really good for the industry, man. That's a lot of image. Like, who's going to buy all those? Someone is, I guess, because they keep doing it, but that's just like craziness to me. I don't know.
Well, I can admit to that, because when Dynamite did Thundercats issue 1, I probably bought like 10 variant covers.
Did you? Yeah. That's and they were like $5.99, I think, too, right?
They were, but then I was like, oh, there's a gold foil Thundercats logo.
Yeah.
This artist did a really cool one. David Yama, he's done such fantastic work. His covers have just been phenomenal. It's like, well, come on, just one more won't hurt. One more won't hurt. And then I was like, all right, it kind of does hurt now, actually. I'm just
I mean, as long as you're not overprinting too, right? I think making sure that that was the big thing. Like today, right? You have that Claremont Jim Lee X-Men 1. It's incredible, man. That should be, $500. And I literally picked another one up for $5 at my comic book store. He got a bunch of comics in, and there it was. And they had the Fast Mill, right? The one that they just did, and it was $5.99, and the actual real one was $4.99, because they made 7.3 million of them or something like that. They're just a dime a dozen, right? And so that book should be worth a lot more than it is. But yeah, I digress, but it's an awesome cover though. Jim Lee, I mean, two of the greats on one title. That's crazy.
Yeah, there's nothing better that I love than a good cover. I mean, and that's everything in the comic book industry.
True that. Yeah, I agree.
Now, with your issue in Kingsville, obviously pandemic, you finally sat down and you were ready to get this project started. You're interviewing people, you're getting kind of tips and clues of how to start this. When did you finally sit down and really kind of get like the rough draft going where you were ready to be like, all right, issue one, I think is kind of ready. I got the dialogue and everything set. Now I got to find an artist and start really kind of putting to the grindstone here.
Yeah, so I already had started putting down my storyline. I wasn't sure how to format it, so I was just kind of writing out. Like we've read comics for a long time, right? So we know everything's panel by panel. We know it's sequential art. We know all that. So I was kind of like panel one, this is what I would like to see. Panel two, this is what I like to see. That type of thing. So I had it all mapped out. That part wasn't as difficult. Obviously, it might not have been good, but it wasn't difficult to do, right? You still need to, sharpen that knife to make sure that you're able to cut, right? And so you got to get better and better at writing. And the only way you do that is just to write and write and write. But the hardest part, to be honest, was finding an artist because, I mean, if you mention that you're looking for an artist, your DMs will be blown up with all kinds of people saying, I'm an artist, please, can I send you my work? And at the beginning, I was receiving it. And what I found out is there in certain countries, in this particular situation in Africa, and I can't remember if it was Nigeria, but I met a couple amazing. They looked amazing. The artists were incredible. And I said, yeah, what I would like to do is, develop my characters with you. So not really the comic book, but here's the design that I'm looking for. Can you help me create my character? Because I'm not an artist, right? And I'm working with what I'm thinking is one person. They would send me, okay, here it is. Oh, that looks cool. Okay, let's go to the next one. And then they would send in like, this is like a different artist. This isn't the same person. And what I found out is there are groups, and not just Africa, they're all over the place. And it'll be like a conglomerate of like maybe 10 artists, and someone's like managing these 10 artists. And as people come in and need things, it's just whoever's available is going to draw it and then send it to you, right? And so there was zero consistency. It was just really weird. And I'm like, wow, is this the industry? And then, as I started having people on, they're like, no, go to Facebook. There's groups where they'll actually link you. And so I started doing that. I actually found my artist on Reddit. His name is Dan Zay. He's from Moscow, Russia. He's 24 years old. I started asking him to do things. I was looking for consistency, and I just loved his style of art. We started working together. We've done 2 issues together. He's working on 3 right now for me. And that was the hardest part because you're just scared to death that one, there's going to be zero consistency and no one wants to read a comic book that has like one good page and all the rest looks like a 4th grader drew because you have no idea really who your artist is. So that was probably the hardest part and the scariest part because I got burned a few times. I lost a little bit of money. I had a group out of India doing it. The first few things looked awesome. And after that, I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm good. I think we'll end this relationship here. So I think that was the hardest part for me. And once I had the artist, once I had that down, then, I had Tim Seeley on. I was able to ask him some questions, Tony Fleece, all that good stuff. And, they're all really good people and they're more than welcome to give a little bit of advice and whatnot while you're talking to them. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I got started. And that was that selfish part of me wanting to have a podcast to get that kind of help.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the best way is just asking directly from the source. I think they appreciate it too. And I think they are willing to help you because if you're willing to set up a YouTube channel with a banner and a name and a website and whatnot, and you're trying to get something done, I think they see that this isn't just some guy at the convention who says, I've drawn on and off for the past 20 years and I think I have the next Marvel idea.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those. And they might honestly have the next Marvel idea, but there is a bit of follow through that you do have to be willing to do to get that to fruition. So yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely, it adds up in the story. What's funny about your story in the Moscow, the amount of indie creators I've talked to, I am convinced there is something in the water in both South America, Africa, and Europe because some of the best indie creators, I would say, out of those 3 hot zones specifically, are just, I don't know if they put an emphasis on art, but almost everyone that goes on Fiverr is like, yeah, I tried this, this guy or girl from Brazil or Colombia, or I think one guy said, southern tip of Germany, and they nailed it. And it's luck, but
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard that story multiple times now. It's crazy how much the art scene must be blowing up there.
Yeah, I mean, Brazil in particular, right? I mean, you look at Jorge Jimenez, like who's better than Jorge Jimenez right now in comics, right? You got, and again, it's all so subjective, but he is at the top of his game, and he's Brazilian. I mean, and there's so many amazing Brazilian artists. Argentina's another one. In fact, Omar Francia, who did one of my covers, he's from Buenos Aires. Willie Roberts, who is doing Antarctica. With Top Cow, he's from Buenos Aires. There's some really good artists coming out of Argentina too. I think those two countries I've seen a lot of artists come out of over the last maybe 5 to 10 years. But I think Jorge Jimenez is just such a unique talent. And then, of course, you go to like C2E2 or San Diego Comic-Con and you wait an hour and a half to get him to sign something. Yep. You realize, dude, this guy's a mega star. And it doesn't help that, dude, how do you that talented and that good looking, man? I showed a picture to my daughter. She's like, holy crap, I might read comic books. I'm like, he's an artist, relax. But, dude, he's like the whole package, man. I'm kind of jealous. Like, how are you good looking and that talented, man?
Well, it's funny you say that, too, because at C2E2, we were there. There was the Breaking in the DC. And the panel was him, Chip Zdarsky, Gene Ha, Tim Seeley, and I can't remember. There's one other person. And Chip Zdarsky said, he's like, in my dreams, it just turns to nightmares because I'm trying to write scripts. And there's this beautiful Brazilian man just chasing me with Batman behind me, just drawing page after page. And he's like, it haunts me.
It's so like, it's pretty funny guy, man.
It adds up. I think what's more impressive about the Brazil and Argentina is I think it's people in the US. We don't realize how lucky we are that every Wednesday after work, I could stop by and pick up every 5 new issues easily, where someone in Brazil is like, oh, 2 new issues. It's only been 5 months. This is a good deal. And I don't even know how I would cope with that if someone told me that. And I think what's impressive is the amount of art that comes with that without having not as much reference that we do here. So I have to believe the art is.
Yeah, that's a good point. Oh, I left out Will Conrad too from Brazil. I mean, legend, man, Superman artist, and he's doing Flash Gordon right now. He's doing a lot of stuff actually right now. But yeah, it's incredible how fortunate we are and how available comics are. I mean, you go to Barnes and Noble, Walmart, Target, like it's incredible how available it is. And then I was just in Argentina, but I was in Mendoza, which is the west of Argentina. So it's not a huge city, but it's really hard to find comic books there. Yeah. And yet here are all these amazing artists that have, and they've all had these huge influences out of the US. What's funny is I was sitting back, I was thinking about countries where all these amazing artists, and obviously South America is huge, but Canada also. I mean, Todd McFarlane, Kari Andrews, Jim Zub is actually an artist. A lot of people don't realize that. My guy, Jordan Noir, Canada has produced some really good art. I know I'm missing a couple really big ones too, but it's incredible, man.
Definitely. Yeah, no, it's always just mind-blowing outside of the U.S. how much comic books have been contributed to kind of the outside world.
Yeah.
So with all this work you put in, you finally get issue 1 out. We're now in full effect because as the reason we're here is KINGSVILLE issue 3 is I don't know if you guys are kickstarting currently, correct? Or funding currently.
Zoop, but yeah, I don't know what you call it, Zoop starting. I don't know what you call it from Zoop, but yeah, we're crowdfunding right now through Zoop issue 3.
Awesome. Now for everyone listening that may have seen your page on Instagram or seen a video come up and everything, what would you describe to them and tell them that what is KINGSVILLE about? What's the pitch?
Yeah, so KINGSVILLE is actually an island nation north of this major continent. And it's a small community, a very proud community, a warrior community, and they're a mining community. That's like the number one source of income for this nation. And so a lot of the people that live there obviously are doing mining, and they come across this mineral and they're not sure what to do with it. They don't really have the expertise to kind of dive into it. Well, on the main continent, there's this nonprofit organization called the Alliance for Global Safety, and it's ran by a gentleman named Dr. Derrickson. And it started off as this nonprofit that's trying to bring nations together to help with trade, to help with food, to help with safety. You know, a lot of nonprofits around the world try to do the same thing. And they get their hands on this mineral, but they have the money, they have the expertise to really dig into it. And they find out that this mineral has some unique abilities or unique powers to give people like superhuman abilities, right? And so they start to dig into it, they start playing around with it, and then they start to test it on people. And all of a sudden they start to create superhumans. And Dr. Derrickson's obviously extremely excited about this because he starts to tell nations, if you join me in our group, if you become a member nation of the Alliance for Global Safety, we'll take one of these superhumans and we'll place them in your nation to help with safety and whatever else you need them for. And so he's starting to build like this army, and they're all over the continent. And, you know, they're providing on the outside, providing all the protections and everything that could be needed. But as he gains more and more power, he starts to utilize these superhumans to do some pretty bad stuff to make sure that that power continues. KINGSVILLE starts to notice this. Even some of the people on the inside at the Alliance for Global Safety, specifically Rodrigo, who is the head scientist, he's starting to have like these moral issues go on inside. Like, am I doing the right thing? And is AGS really who they say they are? And now we're in issue 3, and KINGSVILLE has cut them off from this mineral because they don't trust the amount of power that they're getting, that they're going to use it correctly. And you start to see Dr. Derrickson is not someone you want to cross, and he's willing to do anything and everything in order to maintain that power. And sure enough, we're about to go to war in issue 3. So I have issue 1 here. This one right here kind of sets the stage. You get to meet Dr. Derrickson. You have Collapse, which if you look right above me, that big giant guy right there, he's one of the main characters. And right next to him is Snapback. Those are the 2 main characters that you'll see in issue 1. And then we get into issue 2 right here. And you have this guy right here, Connor. He's kind of my Deadpool, Deathstroke kind of guy. But he gets sent on a mission to find out if KINGSVILLE really is out of this mineral or are they hiding things. So some really cool fight scenes in this one. And yeah, things are just getting real. In issue 3, it's definitely more of a mature book, not from like a sexual standpoint. I don't have any of that in there, but some language, and obviously heads are getting cut off, and that's my thing, man. I'm just like, as gory as possible. I love it, man. So yeah, the fight scenes are awesome. And then I don't have very many of these, but this is Lady Lex. She's in issue 2, and you get to see her at the very end of issue 1. But I produced these, only 50 of them, and I only have a few left. So if anybody's interested in that, they can reach out to me. But these are all you can find on my TikTok shop, on eBay, on my website, worldatwarcomics.com. And then, like you mentioned, issue 3 right now, we have 10 pages done. We're trying to crowdfund to get the rest of it finished because I got to pay Dan, who is our artist, who is amazing. And to be honest, if you create your own comic, for the most part, you're putting a lot of your own money in. I've not made $1. Now, I did create an LLC, so there's going to be some write-offs for me at the end of the year for my comic books. So we could talk about that. But anybody trying to get into comics, I would suggest that because you could write off a lot of your business losses, which helps at tax season. But yeah, issue 3 is 10 pages in, and yeah, we're ready to go, man. It's going to be a lot of fun, very exciting, a lot of action, and a lot of people not having all their limbs at the end of the issue.
I mean, there's not much more you can ask for. And it's surprising because it's one of those comic tropes that we all know. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. We've seen it a million times. Spider-Man, I think, is still one of the finest examples, black suit symbiote. Yeah. And it's crazy that even in today's comic book reading power, like you could still take that trope and still make a new story and still keep it interesting. Because I think it's just one of those endearing themes that no matter how you do it, it's still like someone's still going to want to read it because there's always a fresh take here and there, how it's done.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's unfortunate, right? And it's very relatable too, right? Because if you look around the world, like these organizations exist, right? So I certainly stay out of politics. I never talk about politics. I don't care who people vote for. But let's be real, right? Corruption is rampant everywhere. I don't care what side of the spectrum that you're on politically. There's corruption no matter where you look, right? And it's because of exactly what you said. When it takes a very unique person as they gain power to be responsible with that power, right? And we're all flawed human beings. I know I am. And so, unfortunately, your tendency, right, is one, you enjoy that kind of power, and two, you want to protect it. And the more power you get, unfortunately, a lot of times, the more you're willing to do to maintain that power and grow it, right? Like enough isn't ever enough. Everyone says, like, if I could just win the lottery, that would be enough. I'm telling you, human nature is not built that way, right? You want to win again. You want more. I just need $1 million. No, now I need $10 million, right? It's just how it goes. It's my situation. I just needed my Green Lantern stuff, and then all of a sudden, I just got my Jonah Hex in. I'm really excited about. Like, where does it end? My wife's all, dude, what does this end? I'm like, when they stop creating cool stuff, I guess. I don't know.
No, it's very. Someone always asks, what's an example that you can give them? Like, go to a casino, watch someone come in, say, I'm only gonna spend $100. They hit the jackpot. They're like, oh, I'm up $450.
Yeah.
Let me put it all in again. When's if I win double that amount? You are literally ahead. You could walk away with money, and you'll lose it all at that chance to get just that little bit. And I think comic books, that just illustrates it always perfectly.
Yep. Agreed.
Now, your advice with the LLC, that is definitely critical. For anyone listening that's not familiar, number one, you don't make a comic book issue in 3 months. We always try to debunk that. That's usually, I'd say it's almost like one issue per year. Realistically, by the time you get done. And usually I'd say one issue. I guess you could do it as cheaply as you wanted, but I usually tell people one issue, self-funded, cheaply $8,000 if you cut costs, but realistically probably 17 to 20.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. It cost me about between 6 and 8 per issue. I don't know exactly like the detail because the problem is you're printing small runs, right? And unfortunately, we're in a situation where inflation in certain parts of the economy have really crept up, and paper is one of them. So unless I print like 10,000 issues, right, which I'm not selling 10,000 issues. You're doing 1,000 or 500 at a time. It's going to cost me in printing costs close to $5, right? Because you're doing smaller runs. And again, there's amazing folks like Comic Wellspring and Kablam, and that's their business models to help indie creators do smaller runs. But you have to pay for that, right? So it's $5-6. I got to pay the artist. I got to pay, for the system that I use for the lettering, like all these things count up. So to your point, at the end of the day, it probably is 10 to 12,000 for me to do one of my issues. And so when you're doing crowdfunding, you're asking for 1,500 or 3,000. To be honest, that's going to go right to my artist just to get everything done. And then I'm still going to have to put in a bunch of money on my own to get 3 done. But again, I knew that going in, so I'm not complaining. It's a passion of mine. My story arc is 4 issues for the first story arc. I want to get that done. And so I told my wife, she goes, 4 issues, that's it, man, because this is like such a bad business model that you have going on here. But I'm like, it's a hobby, right? I love it. It's fun. I'd like to get that done, and I could check that part off of my life. Like, hey, I was able to scratch that itch, and I enjoyed it. It was fun, right? I'm tabling at cons, and like I never thought I would do that. It's a lot of fun, man. It's enjoyable.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think anyone, especially in the indie creation scene, you may want to cry, you may want to scream. The amount of blood that goes into these comics. But when you get that issue back, that glossy cover, and the best thing will be usually either the white or black, is that name at the bottom or on the inside cover. No matter how much it costed you, just to know that your name is on a book that you created, that you own. I don't think there's really much in this world that can come up there. Obviously, probably marriage and kids and stuff like that is probably equally. We won't get anyone in trouble today. But having your name out there, kind of immortalized in the comic book industry, and then also saying you are part of the comic book industry because I mean, you are. I think it usually justifies the end.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree, man. It's you gotta love it, right? If you're trying to do this to build a profitable business, right? It's not a 2-year plan, it's not a 3-year plan. And the failure rate is extremely high. You got to go into this knowing that this needs to be a passion, it needs to be a hobby. The chance of getting to a point where it's actually very profitable and you're doing really well, it's a small percent of people who reach that, right? And I know some of them who have done that, and it's incredible to see them. But they're also at 30 cons a year, right? So they've done this full time, but I mean they're on an airplane constantly, because that's where you really make your money, is at a con. You don't make it during crowdfunding. Most people don't. That's where you hopefully recoup something, or you're able to pay for everything. But then you overprint, and then you go to cons and you hope that people buy them there. And that's where it gets a little bit more profitable, and maybe you might eke out a little bit of profit, but most people don't, to be honest.
Yeah, no.
Unless you're an artist, where you see the successes, where, like, if I was an artist, then I would be profitable, right? But unfortunately, if it would be a really bad comic book if I drew it, man. It would be stick figures and a lot of blood.
Terrible to look at.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, what's always nice about crowdfunding stuff is I think you guys do get a lot more control over your tiers. I don't know if this was more fun, because I feel like as you get the Kickstarter, or crowdfunding in general, as you start to kind of see your fan base and see what they like and see kind of what they're looking for you to offer, you could create a lot more different tiers and make it a lot more appealing to them. I don't know, with this issue being issue 3 and kind of being at the climax of our story arc, was it a lot more fun kind of making tiers with this crowdfunding?
Yeah, I mean, I've done some like crazy stuff. I've done a lot of stuff other people have done, like bookmarks and stickers and all this other stuff. And it's good. I did T-shirts. I've done a lot of that stuff. I will tell you, if you're going to do T-shirts and you're fulfilling your own orders, when you get 120 people backing you, and 40 of them order a T-shirt, it is a pain in the butt. Just be prepared for that. T-shirts is not a good idea, man. I mean, maybe they liked it, but oh man, it's really hard. But this time I actually worked with Wham Stand. I don't know if you're familiar with Moose.
Oh, fantastic guys. Yeah.
Oh, he's such a good guy, man. I love Moose, man. And he produces, so just to give a little shout out to him, all my stands that I take to cons, I utilize from Wham Stand right there. Just go to Wham Stand. His name's Moose. DM him if you want to get something from him. But these are magnetic. And so he created my emblem for WorldatWar Comics. This is my LLC. This is my what I would call my publishing brand, and they just kind of fit here. And what's great is I have, because I also do reviews of comics and I try to interview people from different brands. I got these from all kinds of different companies. There's Top Cow, I got Massive, DC, Marvel, obviously, and then I got my own too, KINGSVILLE, which he did for me too, which is a magnet. So I asked him, I said, dude, you're doing all these amazing things. You should be like helping people with their crowdfunding with rewards and stuff, because he could produce some awesome stuff. Yeah, so sure. Next thing he's done for me is he's created this, which is like a standee, but you can see it's perforated. It's freaking like such high quality, man. And then it has a little stand that says KINGSVILLE, and it pops in right here. So if we hit our goal, people are going to get this. I did keychains. Obviously, everyone loves stickers for some reason. I mean, I do too, I guess, but I made a lot of really cool stickers. But yeah, he produced a lot of really cool stuff, man. Moose is incredible. If you're not following Wham Stand, you got to follow Wham Stand, man. He's awesome. He produced a lot of stuff for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, they've evolved. I think we were just looking that he's doing microphones for podcasting now, to put your microphone in an amplified. Who about that? I mean, that's just
brilliant. Awesome. I actually got one too. I took it to San Diego Comic-Con, and I got to interview Danish, who used to own Valiant Comics. He now has a Bad Idea. And I got to do Robert Venditti and Derek Kolstad, who is the creator of John Wick and the movie Nobody. If you've never seen that, that's freaking amazing too, if you like that kind of stuff. I had my stand. I had them holding it, man. It was awesome. They're holding my brand, and I was like, dude, this is so awesome. I sent all kinds of pictures of Moose. I'm like, dude, this is freaking amazing. And then, Mr. Fish Comics, he has one. Like, there's a bunch out there to have it.
Yeah, such a good guy too. I love it. Love his stuff.
Yeah.
He's such a good guy to talk to. Doing these issues, obviously we're on issue 3. I think a lot of people really love doing an issue 1 because it's new. You're trying to get people into it. It's easy to talk about. I mean, it's fresh. I personally, I'm not that big of a fan of issue 1 because it's a lot of work with really no payoff because I know I have to wait down the road. So issue 3, this had to be a lot more fun because now you don't have to do the introductions. You don't have to get this out of the way. You can advance the plot so much more. Was this a little bit more fun to write or even easier in the process just because now you can finally let your ideas converge?
Yeah, 100%. You know, issue 3 and 4 will be the most fun that I will have in the comic. 2 is fun too, don't get me wrong, but yeah, you're right. You got to kind of build a foundation in your first issue. You got to they need to understand the world. They need to understand the geography. They need to understand why this character might not like that character and what makes them different and what makes them tick. And so, yeah, that's really important to lay the foundation, but it's a lot of work, right? And yeah, but you get to like issue 3 and 4, especially if you're closing out an arc, all of a sudden, you know, stuff's hitting the fan and it's a lot of fun, man. I'm enjoying it. And 4, I think 4 will be a crazy twist that hopefully people don't see coming.
Yeah. And it's crazy too, because obviously you said this is the end of the arc, and it sounds like you got a fairly good amount of arcs kind of laid out in your head or even on paper where you want to go with this.
Yeah.
What's more interesting, I think, as I was kind of looking through the comic and kind of reading a little bit of it here and there, you've created again another comic book that you could do so many spin-offs. I mean, even if you decide to end Kingsville, where you know kind of both companies kind of take a hit together, they both die out, but there's still superheroes left. I mean, you could advance the timeline, 100 years. This person's still alive. They metabolize this. I don't know if that was your intention or if that's just, as you start writing it, you're like, man, this kind of gives me the WorldatWar verse that I can kind of branch off of. And because I might really like this character, but I don't like him in this setting. And now I can give them kind of a proper sequence.
Yeah, no, fully agree. I mean, I already have a story that I've written for Collapse, which so far has been my most popular character. Again, I mean, he's bulky. He's kind of a big guy, super strong. If he catches you, which is really hard to do, you're dead, man. He'll pop your head off. But his superpowers, he collapses into a pool of liquid, and now all of a sudden he can catch up to you pretty quickly, right? That's been my most popular character so far. And I've written a story for him, but I could do that for several characters. Obviously, like you said, that there is going to be an end, but I'm leaving it open for more if I ever want to get into it. But when I sat down with my wife, I said, let me get through 4 issues. That's the arc. If it ends there, it's a good story. I think it's a great story and it can end there, but there will be an opening for more if need be. Right. And I think everyone's dream is to be the next McFarlane, where you're on issue 360 or whatever he's on, 358, whatever he's on right now. That would be amazing, but the reality is, man, there's a lot of really good indies out there. I just want to get through this first arc and we'll see what happens. But I will have 4 issues for sure. But like you said, room for all kinds of different directions we could go into. And that was on purpose, right? I wanted to leave doors open. That way, if it is popular enough, I just needed to pay for itself. That's it. And I'm pretty close to that. And as soon as that happens, I could do this all day, every day, as long as it's paying for myself, right?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, that's the goal, I think, with a lot of indie creators is it's really not even about profit as much as it's breaking neutral. Coming to a neutral ground. $0 owed, $0 paid. I mean, it's really not good or bad. I mean, you made something, but you don't get anything out of it, but nothing's taken away.
Exactly.
And that's definitely a win. Because that means you know how to do this now and come out even, which is crazy. But I think the best thing for you is that, if you decide to take a break and you're like, you know what, we came close to it. I got to fine tune some things. I'm going to come back to this in 3 or 4 years. You still have the YouTube channel. People are still interested in your interviews. It gives you new ideas. You could even do interviews of, I started writing again. What do you guys think of this? And that's just a great model to go off of to still keep kind of your foot in the industry and still stay relevant.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. You know, the YouTube has kind of turned into something I wasn't expecting, to be quite honest. Not that I have like 100,000 followers and I'm making money off of it or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to make it sound like it's bigger than it is, but it has become something that I wasn't expecting it to become. And so now I'm starting to get some, you know, I had Tom Brevoort on, who is the head of the X-Men office. He was the head of the Avengers office. To me, that's a big deal, man. He's like a walking Marvel encyclopedia. If you watch that episode, he literally off the top of his head ran through the first 50 issues of Fantastic Four, and he told you exactly what happened in every single issue. He goes, "You want me to keep going?" I'm like, "I think we're good, Tom. I think you did it." He goes, "But he could do that for Avengers. He could do that for," and in fact, it was, who was I listening to? I don't know if it was Jimmy Palmiotti. He was on an interview, but anyways, he had mentioned, you want to meet someone who knows anything and everything that has ever happened in Marvel, it's Tom Brevoort. That guy knows everything. And I had him on. It was supposed to be a 45-minute interview. I think we went close to 2 hours, and it was just crazy to hear this guy. I mean, he's just got so much up here. And I think he's the longest tenured employee at Marvel now, because so many people have left, right? And so I think he's been there 35 years, 37 years, something like that. So yeah, he's just a wealth of knowledge. I had a blast. I got to say hi to him at the San Diego Comic-Con. But yeah, I mean, to your point though, man, you never know where it's going to go. And that's become kind of a big part of my hobby now, is doing the YouTube. So balancing that and the creator owned type stuff is fun, because I also have a full-time job that's more than 40 hours, right? So this is definitely a hobby, man, and it's not paying for anything, trust me.
Yes, after comic book week this week, yes, this is this is a hobby, for sure. Well, like I said, Kingsville has always been interesting. The first time I saw your page, we're on issue 3. Everyone listening that really wants to pick up an issue, they want to help you out, they want to get in on this. What's the next steps for that?
Yeah, if they could go over to zoop.gg. That's all you have to remember, zoop.gg. Zoop is a crowdfunding site just like Kickstarter, Fund My Comic, Indiegogo, all of them. It's a comic book focused crowdfunding, so they only do comic books. But what makes them different is they are kind of a one-stop shop for an indie creator. So you go and you work with them. You pay a little bit more for them than you would any other crowdfunding, because they could print for you. They will do the fulfillment for you. They do the marketing for you. They do everything. And whereas at Kickstarter, right, it's an amazing platform. I've used it several times, but you do everything. You build the site. So it's like building a website. I mean, you got to build out everything. Takes a while, and then you got to manage it. And then when fulfillment time comes, if you reach your goal, you're in your kitchen with family members, putting boxes together for everybody. So it's a lot of work, whereas Zoop takes all that away. As a creator, you send them your files, and then they handle depending on how much you need their help, they could do everything. And that's where you're seeing like a Dustin Nguyen, who did Ascender, Descender. He's worked for Batman. He's done DC stuff. Incredible artist. If you've never read Descender or Ascender, what's wrong with you, man? It literally, he has hand painted both of those books. Every single panel is done in watercolor, and it's just next level. So on Zoop, he has, I think it's the Descender, and it's all the art with special art that no one's ever seen before. And he's just such a talented guy. And I think they're going to do the same thing for Ascender once this one's done. So, and you know, again, Zoop handles everything for him, and it's hardbound, and Zoop produces some amazing hardbound books. So yeah, it seemed like the right thing to do. Again, it's still getting known. And I don't have a name like a Dustin Nguyen where, you know, once you put it up, you know, 20,000 people are going to come check it out. So my situation is going to be a lot different than his, but I think he's made 50 grand off of it so far of his, as he should. He's got a 25-year career, and he's at the top of his game as an artist, right, and creator.
Definitely. And for everyone that's interested in seeing your videos, plus if anyone can't see from his background, you have one of the most impressive action figure setups and collections that I have definitely ever seen. All I have is finally getting my Target Voltron, which took me forever to go to Target after Target to get that.
That's pretty good, though.
Yeah. So we're still a little fair there. Where can people follow you and keep up to date and see what you're up to?
Yeah, I mean, it's World at War Comics on every platform. And trust me, I am. If there's a platform, I guarantee I'm on it. I'm pretty active on Instagram and TikTok. I do lives. I mean, probably every 2 weeks or so on TikTok. I try to do lives maybe every 2 weeks on my own channel. Most of my stuff is pre-recorded, just because I do work, and so to commit to the same time frame every single week is really hard for me because I travel a lot for work. I don't know if you could see on my chair, I probably have 40 figures that have come in over the last 3 weeks that I need to open. So what I'll do is I'll do a live and go through them. My favorite one, I'm a big Jimmy Palmiotti fan, and his Jonah Hex run I think is one of the best. And this is one of McFarlane's latest that he did, which I'm really excited to open, but I'll wait for my live to do. I have the old DC Direct one, but I had to get this one too. And then, of course, he did the Green Lantern Corpse, which I still need to find the chase. I got to get my hand on that. Someone has it on eBay for 140 bucks.
I have it on eBay watching it. And I was like,
that's a lot, man. It's going to show up somewhere else. I was just in Target and I saw Boomerang. I saw the manga Batman. I saw all the chases. That's the only thing I don't collect is the chases for McFarlane. It's a lot of work and it just makes it expensive. So I'm not a big, I don't have to have everything McFarlane does, but I do have like 400 of his stuff. So I have most of it, but I'm not like I have to have every single item. My good friend, House of Geekery, I don't know if you follow him on TikTok, probably has the most impressive. He's an in the box collector. He's my age. So, and he's a single guy. So he lives in his apartment. Just him. His daughter lives in another city. He's an inbox collector, so his walls from the floor to the ceiling are full of McFarlane figures, and he has everything that McFarlane's ever produced in Spawn and in DC, mainly DC. So McFarlane started in 2019 with DC. He got the rights, and since then he has every single one. So go to House of Geekery on TikTok or on Instagram, and you'll see his videos. It's mind-blowing, literally the whole, and you have 80s kid where his whole house looks like you're walking through an old school, like KB Toys, and everything's in box and it's on hooks. So it's literally like you're going through a store. It's incredible. There's a bunch of them. But anyways, yeah. So I geek out with a lot of these folks too. Ahsoka the Geek is another one. It's such a cool community, the action figure community. I've had to slow down a little bit, but I'm running out of room, and my wife, who snuck in while we were doing the interview real quick, she's made it very clear none of this crap comes out of the house of this room. So I'm out of the box collector, so it has to fit in here.
Oh, I know that feeling very, very, very well.
Yeah, she's like, I don't want to see those things anywhere else in this house, man. Whatever you do in that room, you do in that room, but just don't let that stuff spill over.
Well, as I told my wife, I said, if Batman shows up somewhere, Batman shows up somewhere. Who am I to stop? That's just how it is. You did not find that as funny as I did, so she'll forgive me eventually.
Usually they don't. The sense of humor seems to be a little different on them for some reason.
Just a bit. It's been great answering your questions. We're looking out for those that are going to go and they want to get in on KINGSVILLE 3. When does the campaign end? How long do they have? And roughly when would we be expecting to have issue 3?
Yeah, so there's 14 days left. So head over there right now. We could really use your support. And then the idea is December, January it'll be out. So yeah, we did 2 issues last year. This will be the first issue this year, just because of work and stuff like that. But I'm hoping that by May of next year, issue 4 is out and the first arc is over. So that's not too bad. 2.5 years, get 4 issues done for an indie, I think is good.
That's great.
2 is pretty good if you could do 2. Most people do 1 a year. It's hard, man. It's hard. It takes financing, and that I don't have, man. I haven't won the lottery yet. If I win the lottery, man, this is all I do. I promise.
It's a matter of time. It's coming.
Yeah.
To everyone listening, if you like everything that you heard, you want to check them out, and you want to get in on this, go to zoop.gg, get on the WorldatWar Comics, KINGSVILLE issue 3. Tommy, thank you for coming on. Like I said, we've been longtime fans. Your videos are always fantastic. The comic looks great. We can't wait to see it come out and see what it does. Again, everyone, go follow him. WorldatWar Comics, Instagram, wherever you are. wherever you're listening, give him a follow and see what he's up to. And we can't wait to have you back on the show and discuss this even further. Everyone listening, if you're watching this on YouTube, click subscribe. If you're listening to it on wherever your podcast platforms are, give us a follow and keep up to date with us as well. All right, everyone, we hope you had fun, and we'll see you next time. Everyone, have a good night.
Thank you, Ryan.